Let Bobby Engram cook. I was spending most of Saturday wondering what in the HE double hockey sticks I was watching at Northwestern. Is that what most college football fans and media get to see every Saturday? An innovative offense that doesn't stick to the same old principles every single week? Because I can get used to that. Get me on board with Bobby Engram taking the shackles off that offense and having free reign to do whatever it is he wants with this team. We'll definitely be touching on that offensive performance later in this one. Apologize, I'm coming to you guys later in the week. Once basketball starts up, man, my weeks just get extremely full, especially with the baby running around too. I just don't have a ton of time, so probably going to just stick it to one podcast this week. We're going to break down Northwestern. We got a lot to unpack in that game and trying to give you some stuff you haven't heard yet, just because I'm sure a lot of you have already mentally moved on to Michigan State. Was also at the red-white scrimmage on Sunday after getting back from Evanston. I'll give you some takeaways on that one as well. But back to last Saturday, 42-7 Wisconsin wins. They hadn't beaten Northwestern in Evanston by that much since 1983. That place is typically a house of horrors. I think I've been there 5 or 6 times now to cover a game, and every time I've gone, it's been a grinded-out, slugfest, sloppy game for Wisconsin. After Nate Van Zyl botched that first field goal on Wisconsin's opening drive, it was a fairly clean game for Wisconsin the rest of the way. It was smooth sailing. They threw the first, second, third punch to Northwestern and kept punching and made the Wildcats lie down in their home stadium. Wisconsin threw for 322 yards. That's the most this program has thrown for in a single game since 2015. Graham Mertz with another 5-touchdown performance. He's done that twice in his career. He's the only UW quarterback to do that twice in his career. The Badgers have only had 2 other quarterbacks do that in school history. Chimere Dike, junior wide receiver, with a career day as well. 10 catches, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns, all personal bests. I mentioned how ugly this series tends to be typically in Evanston. Wisconsin's 42 points were the most they scored against Northwestern since 2010. Wisconsin had a total of 515 yards. I think they only had one game that was better than that last season, and that was against Rutgers. I'm trying so hard not to overreact because I know how bad Northwestern is, but I did pick Wisconsin to lose. I wish I would have waited another hour, because if you were following the board, I go, if what I heard was true, there's no way Wisconsin's losing. And a couple of the things I heard were about Jim Leonhard's practice tweaks. He's shuffled some things around that's really allowed to keep the players fresh. I know midweek they were kind of dragging, kind of tired. I think Paul Chryst had a tendency to go hard early in the week, midweek, and then try and give them some time off later in the week. I think Jim Leonhard's, maybe it's just because it's this part of the season, about the midway point. Obviously, they were dealing with a lot emotionally. But from what I heard, the players really appreciated what Jim Leonhard did to their schedules, and they felt really good mentally and physically going into that game. The biggest part was I was told the shackles were coming off that offense. I think I mentioned in if it wasn't the last podcast, the one before that, but there had been some things going on between the staff and in terms of play calling. Now you take Paul Chryst out of the equation, the players have one voice to focus on. And I don't think it was a surprise that you saw Bobby Engram come down and call plays from the sidelines to make sure that he was the only voice and the only play caller. Because if he's up in the booth, sometimes the play he calls isn't always the one that got ran. At least from some of the stories I told, or at least there was, some barking going back and forth. Let's start with those first 2 drives, because it's not that Wisconsin hasn't, and I shouldn't even focus on the first 2 drives. It's not that Wisconsin hasn't tried this in the past, but they've never really stuck with it for a full 60 minutes. And not that they had to against Northwestern, but obviously The biggest takeaway was Wisconsin stopped trying to use the run to open up the pass. And I've been saying this for years. You got to go the other way with it now. Use the pass to open up the run. Wisconsin threw on first down 5 times in their first 2 drives. You think Northwestern was expecting a run on first down? Graham Mertz was 5 of 5 for, I think it was 78 yards and a touchdown on those drives. Easy completions, too. Wisconsin said I think it was Braylon Allen that said they put in a little RPO action. I didn't know if it was true RPO or just kind of the motion, because I doubt Graham Mertz, being that he's not that he's slow, but he's not a big runner. I don't know if you're really making him or giving him the option to hand it off or throw it, but apparently it was. And you watch those games back on tape, you see when he fakes those handoffs to Allen, those safeties are coming hard, flying into the box. The linebackers are coming in with a reckless abandonment. It made those slants easy pitch and catch football. And you know what Wisconsin fans really loved? 2 things. It wasn't run, pass, and the Badgers stayed out of 3rd and long. They only had 1 3rd and long the entire game. And when you go run, pass, and other teams can slow down the run, those are exactly the type of situations you're going to put your offense in. And I thought Bobby Engram called a fantastic game. Even if it was just throwing it 4, 5, 6 yards on 1st and 2nd down, just take away those 3rd and long opportunities. At least make sure you're in something manageable. And it's not a shock that Wisconsin was 10 of 14 on 3rd down, because all of them except for 1 was manageable. And even the 1 3rd and long they had in the 4th quarter, they picked up. You got to listen to this quote from Jim Leonhard. It's not that he's saying anything mind-blowing, but you never really heard this from Paul Chryst. And I could just hear Wisconsin fans crying with joy when he said this on Saturday.
Yeah, I think number one, balance, right? You can't allow teams to continually attack, right? You have to do something to slow them down and keep them on their heels. And obviously the right thing today was perimeter, right? Getting the ball on the edge, trust Graham to make great decisions, trust our receivers to beat coverage, and they were aggressive. And that might not always be the correct approach to it, but we have to play off of our passing game, right? Teams are going to stop the run. They are going to load the box and dedicate a lot of attention to our running backs and O-line, and we have to be able to balance that up a little bit, and I thought today was a great example of it.
What a novel concept. So I was talking about, I don't think I finished my thought, but I had heard the shackles were kind of coming off the offense. Jim Leonhard had asked Bobby Engram, figure out a way for teams to start respecting this passing game. They love their group of wide receivers. Get them the ball in space and start making teams pay for loading the box. And that's exactly what Engram did. Aside from going to the Wildcat too much, I thought Engram called a near perfect game. Miss me with that Wildcat package, though. I don't care bringing it out here and there. But you killed that first drive with it. I don't know how they got that touchdown pass from Braylon Allen to Chez Mellusi. That thing had train wreck written all over it. But that's kind of going back to Northwestern just being a really bad, undisciplined football team. I know there was the 3rd and short. Some people say Allen missed his hole. I can kind of see it. Or missed his read. But they've been missing those reads the whole year with it. I don't know why you bring it out on 3rd and short and put them in that situation, especially when you've been you're averaging 5 yards a carry. Your quarterback has been sharp, playing mistake-free football again. Your play-action game was outstanding on Saturday. I just don't think you need the Wildcat. I think there's times you need it, times you don't. You were going to bury Northwestern without it. I think he goes to it too much. I'm fine with it. Coming out, if you need some sort of spark or you see something on tape that you can exploit. Problem is, half the time they do it, Chez Mellusi's not even in, so you know exactly where the ball is going. It's going to Braylon Allen. Maybe they'll get better at it. I mean, Braylon Allen can throw it pretty well for a running back, and I watched Northwestern. They did not cover up Graham Mertz off the snap at all when he was at wide receiver. I'm guessing at some point Wisconsin gets Mertz involved with a pass to him or sends him back around to throw it, that there's some potential, some untapped potential with that too. His last two teams I've watched from above, I guess did Wisconsin run it against Illinois? I can't remember, but Ohio State wasn't covering up for Mertz very well either. So, I would like to see them maybe add that wrinkle. They had the jet sweep off it to Skyler Bell, which was kind of nice. But Braylon Allen doesn't scream Wildcat quarterback to me. I'd almost rather let Ches Malusi run it because he's a little shiftier, harder to tackle, or harder to get your hands on behind the line, a little more sudden with his stop-and-go movement. I think he just gets 0 to 100 a little quicker than Allen. But that was really my one gripe from Saturday. And now we got to wonder here, is Wisconsin back? I don't think you can necessarily say all their issues are solved by beating a 1-5 Northwestern team. But I said this post-game, that's what Wisconsin football should look like. That's what good teams should do to that Northwestern squad. Nationally and across the Big Ten, nobody's going to raise an eyebrow for that win, but you all know Ryan Field and that Northwestern program are not good historically to the Badgers. It was 16-15 in the last 31 games coming in. Last 16 games, they had split that series, 8 games apiece. Nobody should definitely take that win lightly, but obviously it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to Saturday at Michigan State, where Wisconsin needs another win. You're facing a reeling, struggling Spartan squad in their home stadium. They're going to be playing desperate. Wisconsin obviously fighting to get back into the Big Ten West race, fighting to get to a bowl game, and fighting for their interim head coach, Jim Leonhard, to retain the job in 2023. But back to Northwestern and that offensive game plan, the numbers are skewed a little bit because when Wisconsin started playing with a lead, they dialed it down for obvious reasons. But another thing I really liked about Engram was he kept Northwestern guessing. It only took him the second play of the game to go into that RPO action and hit DK on that slant. He used 4 different packages in the first quarter alone. In addition to the Wildcat in their base, they had that jumbo set and the pistol, which was new. Wisconsin had some problems with the pistol, if I remember right. Was it 2018? They kept running it with Jonathan Taylor, and it wasn't awful, but it just didn't nearly have the same success as a single eye or an eye formation, getting Taylor downhill faster and just killed the Badger offensive line with how much penetration got in there. But Saturday didn't look half bad. But Engram really made Northwestern honest throughout Saturday. Very balanced attack. 30 passes, 38 runs. Again, numbers a little skewed because of the lead Wisconsin had. Braylon Allen even said that box was a lot lighter than he's used to seeing. In the first drive alone, Wisconsin only ran it on consecutive plays 6 times. And they ran it consecutively 19 times. Again, those numbers are a lot higher because Wisconsin was playing with a lead. And I think Engram did a good job of running it into a heavy box a few times just to keep the Wildcats up there enough to really open up that passing game. But he took shots off turnovers. He took shots on what you'd think are typical running downs for Wisconsin, second and short. A lot of times got the ball out quickly. Graham Mertz got rid of it in 2.71 seconds. Again, that's a little bit better than his average of the year of 2.8 according to Pro Football Focus. But with the mixed-in play action that Wisconsin ran, that number's going to be a little higher than it was. Haven't been a heavy play action team this season. So the ball was coming out quickly. You saw a lot of Wisconsin wide receivers with favorable matchups. It didn't look like Mertz had to make many tough throws. Sign me up for that versatile attack every Saturday because that is going to be hard to stop. I've said this time and time again. The weapons are there. I think Wisconsin could still be better in their power run game, especially with the offensive line. They've been terrific pass blockers all year. Mertz wasn't touched on Saturday, only had one hurry. So it's looking like Wisconsin's passing offense very well could outgain the run game this year. Badgers currently averaging 235.5 passing yards per game. School record definitely in sight. As far as the defense goes, I don't have a ton to say about them. Not that they weren't good. Obviously, there were some major bright spots. Kamoy Latu coming up with 2 interceptions. John Torchio had the 3rd. The inside linebacker position, though, is going to be one to watch going forward because I thought Tatum Grass and Jake Chaney, not that they were fantastic, but they were solid. They didn't hurt Wisconsin, and they did make some plays. I mean, Grass was second on the team with 6 tackles. Chaney right behind him with 5. He had a quarterback hurry as well, almost came up with a sack. That inside linebacker position has been an Achilles heel for this defense, and those were a pair of first-time starters with a lot of pressure on them, considering Wisconsin had lost 2 games in a row. Defense hadn't been what it had been accustomed to in the Jim Leonard era, and I thought they played pretty well, and they definitely got off blocks. Definitely really helped that front 7 set a tone, and that was actually my biggest takeaway. For the first time this season, I felt like Wisconsin was really reestablishing the line of scrimmage off the snap, and you made Northwestern one-dimensional, which is what they've typically done to teams under Jim Leonard, but they haven't been doing this season, and teams can kind of pick their poison. Well, when you start getting them in 2nd and 3rd and long, and you know that pass is coming, that allows Nick Herbig and company to turn up the heat, and you can get after them. You can't always do that when you're playing 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Even if the opponent passes, the play's going to develop a lot quicker most of the time, and the quarterback's not going to be sitting there with the ball in his hands. So that front 7 had their best performance, without a doubt, in my opinion. Muma Njongmeta, one of the original starters, I talked to him on Monday. Turns out he broke his hand against Illinois. Has no idea when it happened. He had surgery the following Monday, was cleared to practice Wednesday. Wisconsin kept him on a pitch count. He played 34 snaps. I wasn't watching all that closely, but from what I remember, it was mostly on a lot of 3rd down or pass rushing situations. I'm assuming to avoid him having to make a tackle or take on a lineman coming downhill at him, where he'd have to, kind of put his hands between the pads and grab and exert some stress on that hand. But he expects, somehow to be 100% for Michigan State. So we'll see if he returns his starting job. Jordan Turner was banged up in practice as well. No update on where he stands. But Chaney and Grass were pretty solid. I could see them taking that job and hanging on to it for at least a while. Don't have the upside or the physical tools of the other 2, but they're smart, instinctive football players that I don't think will hurt you, especially in their pass coverage and being in the right spots. Just to finish up here before we move on to the next thing, I'll sarcastically answer a question that you may or may not be asking. No, Jim Leonard has not won the job in 2023. That was a heck of a start, and I said what he needed to do was get Wisconsin back to playing Wisconsin football. That starts by minimizing penalties, that starts by winning the war in the trenches, and that starts by being more physical than your opponent. All 3 boxes were checked with flying colors in Game 1. A little bit more of a test Saturday in East Lansing, but like I said, that's what Wisconsin football should look like. All right, red-white scrimmage on Sunday. That was the most entertaining red-white scrimmage that I've gone to in my lifetime. Some of you who go, or at least keep tabs on it, probably know how ugly these things tend to be. Wisconsin's had some really good individual talent in teams, and they're still ugly, even when you put Johnny Davis, Frank Kaminsky, Sam Decker, Nigel Hayes, Bronson Koenig, whoever on the floor. It's generally never pretty to watch. Sunday was actually kind of fun. 55-51, the Red wins. 5 different players in double figures. The Reds shot 64% from the field and 50% from three-point range. Wasn't a lot of fouls called, which was great. Kept things moving. There was a little lull there in the first half where the teams couldn't buy a bucket, but aside from that, it checked a lot of boxes in terms of a competitive atmosphere. Got to see guys go at each other. Nobody really held back. Sometimes the star players, kind of brush it off. I didn't think Chucky Hepburn, Tyler Wall, and Stephen Crowell, the big three, did that at all. They played. And you got some good offensive fireworks out of the mix, too. Like the Northwestern win, I don't want to make more out of this than what it is. But I'm having second thoughts about my evaluation on Connor Essegian after Sunday. He was pretty darn good. Now, if his shot's not going in, how valuable is he? I think that's the million-dollar question with him. I watched him in Vegas during the last eval period. Wisconsin hadn't offered yet. And I made the mistake of giving up on him. He was bad. I can't sugarcoat it. He probably had some of the worst games of his AAU career when Greg Gard, Dean Oliver were tracking him. I was there for the first couple, and I walked away after probably the third game. I'm like, there's no way Wisconsin's offering him. And I shouldn't have quit on him because I didn't get any highlights out of it. And Wisconsin ended up, not only did they end up offering, they ended up getting him. I mean, he really struggled. I don't know if it was just, he was kind of blowing up late, and there were a lot of coaches in the gym. It was, it's end of July. The kids are burnt out. There's a lot of different reasons for what may have been going on. But that kid is a lot better now than he was 2 years ago. He's got some assassin-like scoring ability to him. Type of kid where there's not a bad shot on the floor, or he doesn't feel any shot he takes is going to be a bad shot. Really quick, clean, smooth stroke. I love the feet off the catch. He can set and fire in a hurry, especially when he's on the move. I mean, Wall threw a skip pass to him. He probably caught it 2 feet inside the arc. As the ball's coming to him, he's backpedaling, sets and shoots and nails a corner three with a hand in his face. He had another one in transition. I believe it was Luke Hurdle, threw the ball up the floor. He just caught it and launched it on the go, hit nothing but net. And then he had a mean step back. I mean, Max Klesman played some great defense on him. He spun, went into a step back, and knocked down a 14-footer with a hand in his face. He's got some stuff to him offensively. He can help this team. I know that I think people make way too much out of the defense. I think it's an easy narrative sometimes, especially with scoring-minded players, to say they're going to struggle at defense. I'm not saying he's a great defender, but I don't think he's bad. There have been worse freshmen that have played here and been worse off on that end, in my opinion. Right now, you can see the strength is an issue because a lot of the times when he is in good position, he'll kind of get bullied out of the way and then can't hold up. That is a problem. But I wouldn't categorize him as a bad defender. It's something he needs to work at, but I'm not going to overblow it and say he's going to be a huge liability over his 4-year career because all he wants to do is score. I don't think that's him. Now, I've only seen a couple games in Vegas, a red-white scrimmage, and one practice, but that's more than every single other person in the Wisconsin media. I mean, the one thing he did do in Vegas, which is probably what landed him an offer, is the kid competed on the defensive end and as a rebounder. So even when shots weren't falling, he was making an impact. I mean, his problem is, what he brings to the table most is scoring, without a doubt. I don't think he's going to be a plus rebounder or a plus defender in the Big Ten. He's going to be out there to make shots. So, how much does he play if his shot's not falling? And then can he kind of replicate some of that same shot making at the red-white scrimmage, once the lights get turned on for real? And then you start going through a 30-game grind of the season. you never know how a true freshman is going to react to that. Max Klesmit, the Wofford transfer, was really good as well. Game high 17 points. He's a lot better than when he was playing at Neenah. I covered him closely for a couple years. Kid that just progressively got better, or I whiffed on it. Many of you know I work for Prep Hoops Wisconsin too, do a lot of the rankings and evals over there. He was probably one of my bigger whiffs early. I had him as a D2 guy as a junior. By his senior year, I had him in the top 5. I like to think he just got better, but I'm sure part of me just kind of misevaled him. But he, I had him higher than Jordan Davis, who obviously went to Wisconsin as a scholarship. I think I had him 5 in that 2020 class, which was absolutely loaded. Jalen Johnson, Johnny Davis, Jamari Sibley at the top. Can't remember who was 4, but I believe he was 5. He's a lot grittier, more physical, more mature than he was at Neenah, and I'm sure 2 years at the Division I level at Wofford plays a role in that. But I thought defensively he was going to be a liability for this program. I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I wouldn't rank him among the top 4 defenders on this team, but so far I don't get the feeling that the jump to the Big Ten is going to necessarily overwhelm him. I think he can be an 8 to 10 point guy for this team, which you're talking about a 4th scorer. That's pretty good. That's huge. And I also think, based on Sunday, he's a guy that can carry you offensively, when 1, 2, or all of your big 3 are struggling. He's got shot-making skills off the catch and off the dribble. And the one thing I liked that I didn't know he had, he was taking guys down into the post and scoring through them on Sunday. I think that's a new part of his game. Whether or not Wisconsin taps into that, I don't know. But that was something that stood out to me. But I said more mature scorer. One of the reasons I say that is he relies a lot less on the dribble than he did when I last saw him live. He's going to run hard off screens. If he gets any opening whatsoever and gets to his spot, gets in rhythm, he can let that thing fly. Being around him in high school and seeing him a couple times now at Wisconsin, I can tell you he's not fazed by this level. He's the type of kid, if he's open, he wants the ball. And if he doesn't get it, he's going to let you know about it. Even though he's the new guy on the block, he's not afraid to get after some of his teammates, if they don't make the right play for him. Not a surprise, but I see him starting at the 2-guard spot. I think he's the most well-rounded of the guards in that mix. Sejan, Jordan Davis, Isaac Lindsey when he gets healthy. On top of that, Wisconsin definitely needs a more veteran presence who can replicate or supplement some of that shot-making ability that you lose from a Brad Davison and a Johnny Davis. The other transfer, Kamari McGee, I like that pickup for Wisconsin. I don't think he's going to score a ton, but he's tough as nails. He's a dog on that defensive end. Chucky Hepburn had his way with him Sunday, but Chucky Hepburn's arguably the best point guard in the Big Ten, certainly the best young point guard in the Big Ten. And I thought Chucky had to work very hard on some possessions, taking extra dribbles or just using his size to outmuscle McGee in the paint to score. I didn't think anything really came easy for him except, one early layup. McGee's always been wired like that too. Like he wants the other team's best defender or best player. And he's played with a great point guard before. He was on the same high school team as Tyrese Hunter. So he knows what it takes to be a role player and a glue guy. And he does it very well. I think he's an upgrade over what Wisconsin had with Trevor Anderson for so many years. McGee's more athletic, obviously. Pretty slithery when he gets into the paint. And I think he can finish at the rim at this level. Again, I don't see a ton of shots coming his way, at least not this season. But now you can give Chucky Hepburn some rest. and feel okay about it. He can defend the other team's best guard, which doesn't always have to go to Hepburn now. It can make him fresher for the offensive end. And you get a guy that's going to put his body on the line for this program. Those 50-50 balls are 70-30 balls when it comes to McGee. That's just kind of the stuff he does. Chucky Hepburn's going to be good, though. Really going out on a limb here, but I liked what I saw. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster. He's a lot more physical than he was last year. I mean, I saw him go right into the chest of Crowell and finish over him. Finish over 6'11", 7 feet from a kid that's also added 20 pounds since the start of last season. Like it was nothing. He's got all the tricks in his tool bag. I don't know about that preseason second team nomination for him. I'll leave it at that. If you were at that game Sunday, you probably know what I'm talking about. There's just something in the way he carries himself and the way he plays. I know it's not in his nature to necessarily take, 20 shots a game. He's not wired like a Johnny Davis. But in terms of overall value, what he brings on both ends of the floor, and his leadership qualities from the point guard spot, I'm not drafting any other floor general in the Big Ten over him. I kind of knew when he was in high school there was something special there, and I think this season, we obviously saw flashes of it when he was a freshman, but I think this season he's going to show it all out now that you don't have a Davison and a Davis in the backcourt. I think that's going to allow him to really run a team the way he's capable of and show the rest of the country how good of a player he really is. Tyler Wall is shooting threes. We got to talk about that. Obviously we've seen him take them before, but some of the shots he was taking and making on Sunday, I'm like, that's not Tyler Wall. That's Peja Stojakovic. Okay, a little bit of a exaggeration there. But if he can make some of that stuff, wow, does that open up Wisconsin's offense? You remember last season where teams started to figure out you just have to double Tyler Wall. Stop worrying about Johnny Davis. You have to take the ball out of Tyler Wall's hands because he was so efficient down on the block. What did he shoot from the field last year? 56%. So he must have been about 65, 70%, when he got a one-on-one post touch. Well, now you start at least making teams respect your three-point game. You can kind of neutralize that to some extent. Obviously, you can't stop teams from doubling him in a post, but, it gives you an added option to your offense. He comes out right away, caught a skip pass early in the shot clock, no hesitation, let it fly, drained it. A couple possessions later, hit Carter Gilmore with a jab step and then let it fly. Then he had, another shot. I think it was one or two dribble jumper going to his right, kind of drifting towards the baseline and knocked it in as well from about 16 feet. Again, red-white scrimmage, no pressure. You're playing against opponents you're not going to be yanked out of the game for that kind of stuff. Greg Gardwood was fairly confident that, this is something Tyler Wall can do, so we'll see. If you need to catch up on the red-white scrimmage, I got the highlights on the YouTube page and on 247 Sports as well. If you want to kind of see what went down, didn't leave anything out with the exception of a Chucky Hepburn charge, which I missed. All right, so I know I said it was going to be a short one. I lied. I'm going to bring on Wisconsin commit Tyler Jansey here in a second. Figured if we're only doing one podcast this week, we might as well make it a good one. Jansey is a 3-star linebacker. He was UW's first commit in the 2023 recruiting class. A little bit of a unique situation for him. Not only like every other Wisconsin commit has he lost his head coach in Paul Christ, but this guy's been committed through 3 different linebacker coaches now. So I'm interested to hear his take, going from Bob Bosted to Bill Sheridan to Mark D'Onofrio. And now there's no guarantee that D'Onofrio's even going to be there in 2023. So Tyler's going to talk about his commitment status, maybe any other schools that have recruited him, and kind of what he's thought about UW's current situation and if he'll sign in December. I know we're kind of in an era where, things that happened last week are kind of old news, but, what was just kind of your reaction when you heard the news of Coach Christ and that he wouldn't be Wisconsin's head coach going forward?
Well, I mean, honestly, man, no matter what news comes out, I'm 100% a Badger. I mean, I love the culture there, and just overall, just the entire school, the entire experience. And I mean, I'm not really going to make any direct comments about the coaching staff exactly and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm still a Badger.
I wanted to kind of pick your brain on this because you've been through a little more than the rest of Wisconsin's 2023 class. I mean, you committed to Coach Bostad, who's now the offensive line coach. Then it was Coach Sheridan, who was only here for a couple months, and now it's Coach D'Onofrio. And obviously, when a coaching change happens, and especially with the early signing period, I mean, there's a realistic situation that, you may have to decide whether or not you want to sign or not necessarily knowing who the inside linebacker coach is.
Yeah.
I mean, just for starters, how difficult has it been to be committed to three different inside linebackers coaches and, having to, restart a relationship that many times?
I mean, it hasn't been that difficult. I mean, at the end of the day, the Wisconsin defense is not changing. They're still their same 3-4, and the linebacker play is really not going to change. And I think they're going to continue just to trust Coach Leonard's ability to lead the defense, and that type of defense is not going to change. And just a different coach is just a different way of saying it, But I think at the end of the day, the linebacker play will continue to be the same. And plus, I mean, Coach D'Onofrio he's a great guy. I mean, he's had a ton of experience, and I think he's overall a great linebacker coach too. So I'm really not that worried about it.
So is it safe to say, you're in a position that, if you're come December, you're not sure what his status is going to be for 2023, you're comfortable signing regardless?
I mean, I think, honestly, yeah, for sure.
What just kind of, you touched on it, but aside from the linebacker play, what's just kept you so faithful to this program through all the changes and obviously some serious uncertainty after this season?
I'd say just their belief in me. I mean, they started reaching out to recruit me when I was a freshman, and they've continued to show support and really believe in me. And overall, Wisconsin has always put linebackers in the league and been a great defensive school. Plus, the academics there is amazing, and the culture there is really great. So, I mean, it's always been a dream school of mine, and I don't see myself going anywhere else.
Even if the head coach is different, I mean, are you really that confident in Wisconsin, even if it's a brand new staff in there, or is that something that might be the thing that holds you back a little bit?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure. We'll see when the time comes with Leonard as head coach right now. I'm extremely confident in Wisconsin.
What's just been his approach with you and Coach D'Onofrio as well since all this went down? Obviously, they want to keep you committed, but at the same time, I'm sure they don't want to lie to you and make promises that they can't keep. Just what have you kind of been hearing from them?
They really just have been having an emphasis on reaching out and just talking to me, to continue to build a relationship with me. I think since the coaching changes happened, I mean, I've talked to Coach Leonard multiple times and talked to Coach D a bunch of times. So, I mean, they really have just increased their emphasis on reaching out and building a better relationship with me.
So you were Wisconsin's first commit in 2023. Not that you have to name any names specifically, but I know you guys keep in touch with the group chat and all that. And so far, Wisconsin hasn't lost a commit since this all went down. Just what's your feel for the group right now and in terms of how strong commitments are, even though there is, some uncertainty?
I'd say all the guys, honestly, are, again, just trusting Wisconsin and trusting the culture that Wisconsin has built, and, are really just firm on their commitment. I think Wisconsin recruits guys like that know what they want, and everybody's kind of just the same, just hard-nosed, get-to-work type of guy, and it's kind of just like we're thinking it doesn't really matter to the coaching staff. We're going to get to work for each other, you know?
Have any other schools reached out to you since Coach Christ was fired and, kind of checked on you at all?
Not many, not in particular, no, but definitely had a bunch of different schools follow me and stuff. After I committed, I unfollowed a lot of the coaches from other schools, but I've definitely had a lot of different coaches following me over the past week.
So I know you made a couple visits to Wisconsin already during the season. Obviously got off to that 2-3 start. Looks like they might be back on track. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks here. But, what did you just kind of make of the slow start and maybe specifically on the defensive side of the ball when things weren't going well?
I'm not going to lie. I really lately have just been focusing on my own season. Okay. Obviously I've been paying attention to Wisconsin football, and their games. And, I think anybody can have a slow start. Even in my season, our team had 2 losses, at the beginning. And, we've turned it around, and Wisconsin can turn it around too, So, I really do not think it's that big of a problem.
So the Northwestern game, your brother played there. Was there any trash talk that went his way after that game?
Oh, 100%, yeah. For sure, yeah. That's the first thing I did. I was text my brother. It was hilarious.
What was his response about that one?
I think now that he's out of the Wisconsin Northwestern football program, really. He just wants to support me, but he was talking crap. He was like, "Man, we're gonna get you next time," but at the end of the day, it's all just fun and games with me and him. He just wants to see me succeed.
So assuming you do sign with Wisconsin in December or maybe even February, if that's what the future holds, what just got you still excited about this program, and what are you kind of looking forward to most next year?
I'd say it's mainly just the guys, and I've talked about a bunch, just the culture at Wisconsin. Everybody there just wants to get to work, and everybody really just cares about each other too at Wisconsin. All I've heard from people that have played there, and just everybody around Wisconsin just says that just the culture there is unbelievable, and I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Thanks to Tyler for jumping on and kind of filling this thing out a little bit. Again, barring some unforeseen circumstance, unless something pops, this will be the only podcast I'm doing this week. I got to catch up on basketball media day. I barely touched on red white scrimmage stuff still as well, and then still working on coaching search updates. Not that I think there's much of a coaching search at this time, and looking ahead to Michigan State as well. So should be another busy week on the site. Thanks again for listening. Numbers continue to grow, looking great. I got to make a call, see if we can get on the 247 Sports Podcast Network finally, so you can get you guys some access to the Spotify and Apple setup as well, because this has gone on way too long. But again, thanks for listening, and we will check in after the Michigan State game. See ya.